What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online broadcast in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care, and I am a member of Dad Central, which also co-sponsors the same broadcast. And through that partnership with those two organizations, I've been blessed to be able to reach out directly or indirectly to over 75,000 fathers this year. And I'm very humbled about that. And one little thing I also do is I'm the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, drink, and travel. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I am fired up today because I have a brand new friend for you. Brand new. And actually, she reached out to me initially, and I was blessed to be on her platform. And I said, well, we have to be reciprocal here. We got to get her. And the thing is, she's not an easy lady to have sit down for an hour because she's doing so much wonderful stuff. But most importantly, she's a great mother. But we're going to have a new friend on today. We're going to introduce you to Shana James. Let me give you some background about Ms. Shana. She has coached more than 1,000 leaders, CEOs, authors, speakers, and people with big visions like me who step into more powerful leadership, start growing businesses, create more effective teams, increase their impact, get promoted, find love, rekindle spark, create a legacy, and become more personally inspired and fulfilled. Man, her clients must be lifetime clients. Man, all that's a lot of stuff. She's known for her ability to assess in just a few minutes the cause of dissatisfaction and stuck points in your profession and love life. Remember the love life today. Put a little star beside that, especially if you're a guy. Then she creates a clear and unique path for you to have true success and incredible love. Referred to as a secret weapon, she cuts through the distraction and provides direct access to your confidence, power, and clarity. I love that. Confidence, power, clarity. You need to trademark that. You need to. She is also a translator between women and men, providing effective tools to transform conversations and dynamics that have gone awry into connection and collaboration. Wow. When she comes on, I got to see, did she write this or should you buy this? Whoever wrote this is on point. She has an MA in psychology, DISC certification, coaching training, more than a decade, facilitating groups and workshops, starting multiple businesses and helping hundreds of entrepreneurs start their own. Her range of skills is like many other coaches. So let's welcome for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, Shana James. What's going on?
It's actually Shana, but
Shana,
either way, I can roll.
Shana. No, I'm not gonna get it wrong. Just like the technical challenges, we're not gonna do them again. So Shana, what's going on today? How are you?
Hi, so good to see you. I just want to say that I started to have tears in my eyes when you were talking about what you do in the world, and I feel really grateful. And you have made it a point to be of service, and I feel called into greater service. There's a lot of work that I do, especially with men right now, and I support them and often in their love lives and relationships and leadership. But I just love hearing that you are going bigger in the world and working with people in the diaspora. Like the way that you're supporting people is a huge global scale. And I just thank you for that. And thank you for inspiring me to do more and be bigger in the world.
Well, I'm truly humbled and touched by your words. Okay, let's finish. No,
We're done. That's it.
We're done. That's it. Well, you know what? We're in this together. Yeah. And when we first had an offline conversation, there was a sinking. There was we don't do hard work. We do heart work.
Yeah.
And I felt your heart from our first conversation. Said, okay, I want to go on a journey. So we are starting a journey together, empowering, enlightening, education, and entertaining of men and those who love them. So I'm happy to be part of your journey.
Thank you. Same. And yeah, I love being an ally for men. I don't know. I can give you all the reasons why I started being an ally for men.
We're going to get there.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is, I just, I feel honored, right? To be a woman in the world of men, it's a little bit of a different thing than being a man amongst men.
Absolutely. So let's go back, as we do with all the time that we have first time friends. And we're going to tell her Shana's not going to be a one and done. I've already told her she needs to come back whenever she wants, because we're going to make room for her.
Thank you.
Because she's got a great heart. But what were the earlier days of Shana before she got into coaching all about?
Yeah, the earlier days of me before I got into coaching, that's so interesting. I mean, if I go all the way back, I was a photojournalism major in college and I thought that was going to be the way. It was like, I wanted to help people see the world in a different and more loving way, speaking of the heart. And so I thought that was going to be the way that I was going to do it. And then that didn't feel like a fit. Then I ended up working with kids with developmental disabilities and pairing. Actually, this was like a fun blast from the past 20 something years ago. I would help pair general education kids with special education kids so that they could have these friendships.
Wow.
I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that was a little bit of the before the coaching realm.
And so where did you go from that? Because I think that's very fascinating, trying to bring those two communities together.
Yeah, I always have had that sense of, okay, how do we bring people together and how do people understand each other? So from there, I moved to California to do a master's in psychology and spirituality. And I found a group of people who we formed an intentional community. Okay. And it was all people who decided like we wanted to be real and be authentic, and we decided that we were gonna, be honest with each other. And we made some pretty big messes, I would say, right? We explored jealousy and we explored anger and we explored all kinds of things with each other. And we decided that we weren't going to leave, right? We weren't just going to run away from the relationships. We were going to actually hash it out together. And so two of the guys who were in that community realized that they were feeling so much more empowered and so much more open and loving. And like they became actually really magnetic to women through this process. They started a workshop for men to support men to have honest and loving feedback with women. And that was, back in 2003, I think. So almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got to be a part of that and be a part of the team of women who would bring this honest and loving feedback. And it totally changed my life because I really, up until that point, I still had a lot of the baggage with men or young men of like, men only want me for sex or whatever all that stuff was that I had been conditioned to feel and experience. And through that workshop, I got to see into the hearts and souls of men and kind of behind the curtain, or behind the facade that a lot of men feel like they have to present to the world. And it just broke my heart open with so much love and compassion for men. Mm-hmm. And that started. Yeah.
So you had that moment. What was your next step? Because you said, I found something that it's heart work.
Yeah.
What was your next step?
Well, my next step over a few years was continuing to participate in that course and starting to coach men. And then I also created a similar workshop for women where women got honest and loving feedback from men, about like, can I connect with you? Do I feel drawn to you? What's keeping me at a distance from you? And so I did that for many years as well and worked with women to help them have better relationships with men. This is a lot in the heterosexual realm because that's more where my experience is. And I like being that bridge, right, for men and women to understand each other. Though I will say whatever your sexual preference or whatever your gender and whoever you're in relationship with, a lot of the fundamentals are the same, right? How do we be authentic and how do we stand strong in our own self-worth and also be really curious and loving toward others. So I created workshops for women. And then at some point when my kid was born around almost 10 years ago, something shifted for me and I realized I couldn't do both. I couldn't hold both, like working with men and working with women or having two businesses in a way.
Right.
And so I really just started focusing more on men because it felt like a calling there was this, yeah, I think what that feels like when you have a calling and it's like, you can't do anything about it. You can't be like, well, actually, I'm going to bow out on this one. It's like, that's what it's felt like to me.
Wonderful. So when you started to focus on coaching men, what were the early days like, and did you have any pushback?
Pushback. There are people every once in a while who say, you're a woman, why are you coaching men? A lot of it's not toward me necessarily, but the sense that men need men, right? There are too many women in the world. There are a lot of single men who've been raised by single moms and men who have sisters, and, men don't need women. Now men need men. And I do agree that men need men. And I think there are different things that we get, when we're working with or being supported by people of different genders. And I think for men, I love and want men to be in men's groups and, be coached by men and supported by men. And what I often find is that then men who are heterosexual go back to their romantic relationships and they try to apply what they've learned in their men's circle or their men's workshops. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always go well, right? Mm-hmm. There's often a fallout, or like it doesn't translate in the same way, or they don't get received in the way that they want to. And so then it's like, where are they going to go then, or who are they going to practice with? So I often am a practice partner for men, where I get to say, okay, well, when you say it like that, here's my first response, or this is what happens for me over here. And we get to work through and help men come from this place again of like, self-honoring. And how do I then be connected to the woman or the person in front of me?
Okay, fantastic. There's so many different avenues I want to go through, but I'm just going to pick one and just go for it.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, how do men clients find out about you these days compared to how did they find out about you when you first started focusing in this area?
Yeah, I think most men find out about me these days through my podcast or through different collaborations, with other colleagues. Back in the day, it was more this workshop that we were doing started to become more, just known in certain circles. And so men would refer, men would say, oh, I had this experience and, check out Shana. But now sometimes my podcast that you were on, the Man Alive podcast, I think is the main way that men start to filter in.
Good. So for everyone who's watching live on the replay or listening on the replay, we're going to specifically get right in, roll up your sleeves. I have short sleeves, so I can't roll them up today.
Can't roll them up.
But we're talking about men and their romantic relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, for a lot of ladies, yes. They're going to want to hear what you have to say.
I love that when women listen too, because they're like, okay, what are the men talking about and what are they struggling with and how are they seeing things?
So through your critical ear and heart, what are men telling you when it comes to romance? Like where are they getting their romantic experiences from? Because many a lady will tell me, this guy doesn't know how to love, he's just not. So you have that ear. This is your passion. This is your heart work. Yeah. Share with us the men that you communicate with, that you mentor. Where are they getting their examples of romance from?
Oh God. I mean, most of us are not getting examples of romance from anywhere worth getting examples of romance, right? So most of us didn't grow up with conscious, loving families or, conscious, loving parents, not conscious, loving, like oftentimes they were loving, but they didn't have tools around how to, have disagreements or how to navigate conflict or how to be emotionally connected, not just in a partnership where we're navigating the kids' needs and the financial needs and the home needs, right? So where people are getting their examples, I would say we don't have many great ones, unfortunately.
And is it even compounded more for men that probably, I'm using a generalization here, but most men when they were younger didn't get exposed a lot to romance if there was a father there?
Right.
Even probably less so if their father wasn't there. They got female side of romance, but they didn't get a male representation of romance. Am I correct in going that route?
I think, though, I don't even know if they, most people don't get any kind of romance that's healthy, if I could make a generalization.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, whether it's a mom or a dad, if it's a single parent, right, then you don't often get a lot of examples. If it's two parents, like I said, again, who are focused more on survival, then there may not be a lot of romance. And then romance, right? It's like, okay, so when I think about romance, I think about two people. It's not just fantasy and fireworks. It's like the deep emotional connection that has a relationship last over time. And how can someone be vulnerable? And we often, I think parents, for great reasons, like we don't want to fight in front of our kids, or we don't want to show that to our kids. But at the same time, I think it helps kids to see two people working through, hey, I have a different idea than you have. How do we actually consciously, lovingly stay connected and figure out what are we going to do here, because we have differences in needs or opinions, right? So when you talk about romance, I hear fundamentals of, emotional availability or connection. Like I'm working on a book called Honest Sex. And the premise of it is that we try to reignite passion in relationships with, lingerie or date night or whatever. And while I agree that we need specific and dedicated time with our partners, a lot of passion fades because we're not actually honest and vulnerable with each other. And we don't know how to receive each other's vulnerability and honesty. And then therefore, our hearts shut down. And if our hearts shut down, our bodies shut down, especially for women. And so there's the downward spiral.
The cycle. You just dropped a number of knowledge bombs that I'm going to have you get deeper in.
Okay.
First of all, and I see if you can read my alleged mind.
Okay.
What word have you heard from men about men and emotions, when it comes to men and emotions, more than any other over the last year?
Over the last year.
Starts with a V. It starts with a V. You used it 2 or 3 times in the
vulnerability.
Okay.
I was going to say, sometimes what I hear is, I don't get it, or like, what are you talking about? Or I think I feel, but I don't even know that I feel, right? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I want to go down this path, aligning from a man's perspective, and men and women listen to this.
Yeah.
Vulnerability and romantic relationships, because I've heard vulnerability so much, especially during the pandemic, from men.
Yes.
It's like, never heard that word before. Now I can almost close my eyes when I'm listening to a man, especially during audio, and say, when's it going to come up? When's that word going to come up? And most of the time, in the first 30 seconds, it comes up.
Yep. Okay. So tell me what you want to know about it, or what's the question about it?
So here's the question. Vulnerability, men, romantic relationships, the correlation that you hear.
Yeah. Okay. So oftentimes men come to me and see vulnerability as a weakness, that if they show certain parts, they're going to get tagged, named, whatever, as weak. All the things that growing up, especially in our generation, men were seen as or they were weak, or they were unmanly, or they, all of those things. And so you have that, and then you enter into a relationship with your adult self, but not realizing, all of those little ones are still in here. And it's like, I can't show this part, especially to the one who I live with, and the one who, I'm dependent on in a way for love, the love and connection. The most love and connection I have is coming from this person, ideally, though that tends to break down in marriages as well. So, oftentimes what I'm doing with men is being a safe place for them to be vulnerable, so that then they can go back and we can work through whatever is getting in the way, or whatever the old wounds are. And it's like, okay, you can cry, you can feel whatever you're feeling, you can be angry, all these things. Then when you go have a conversation with a woman you're in relationship with, it's not as scary. You don't feel as much like I got to defend myself, I got to prove my manhood, right? Because you've already had some of these conversations and you've already gone deep into the places inside that feel less than or feel afraid. And, you start to actually get more comfortable there. So I see vulnerability, and I think you do too. I'm imagining, but you can tell me if you don't. I see it as an incredible strength, to have the courage to bare yourself or to show these deeper layers and your fears and concerns and desires and all of that. I find that incredibly strong.
I'll piggyback and go arm in arm with you on that. In that, I think I saw vulnerability for many men as a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
It's for many men, they're screaming and nothing's coming out.
Yep.
And when the vulnerability, it means it's not that they're screaming, but they're just getting it out. It's like a backpack.
Yeah. Right.
And
carrying the world on their shoulders. I mean, it's so lonely and isolating.
And the reason I use the backpack analogy, folks, is it's school time when we're broadcasting live. And Shana took her little one to camp. So after camp probably comes school.
Yep.
So I'm using that analogy for many men.
Yeah.
It's I got that off.
It's funny. I just had a conversation with my little one about how there were some boys when I was younger who tried to get connection by like throwing snowballs at me or, flicking my bra strap, like all these things that boys did when I was little. I think because they were actually wanting to talk or wanting connect. I mean, some of it's I want to be cool and I want to be seen as, the alpha guy or whatever. But I think some of it is like, I want some attention and I don't really know how to actually connect on a deeper level. So I'm going to do all these things and then they don't work as well as we get older. And so it's often a pretty rude wake-up call for a lot of men. Like, oh my gosh, if you're heterosexual, this woman I'm in a relationship with, she wants me to be vulnerable. And I will say this, a lot of women haven't been trained or they're not used to receiving vulnerability. And so it doesn't always go well, right? It doesn't always go well. Women can get freaked out. They can be like, oh God, my rock, the one who is the stable one in my family is now falling apart. But again, when I come back to the work that I do with men, it's all right, she might have those thoughts. That doesn't mean anything about me. How do I actually stay true to myself and know I'm an amazing man? I'm a, powerful, strong, intelligent, incredible man who also has feelings, who also gets scared, who also has desires, and none of that makes me weak. And so if she says something like, oh God, like, why are you crying? I can be like, because I'm human. Right?
I want to land on that for just a second.
Okay.
Because to the ladies out there who you just addressed, making those assumptions on what they're going to hear and how it's going to be communicated. Can you provide some enlightenment on how ladies can best prepare themselves when that vulnerability moment happens?
Yeah. And this is what I talked about in my TEDx talk. It's called What 1,000 Men's Tears Reveal, about the crisis between men and women. And so working with all of these clients and, their tears and what these men. So part of what I talked about in that TEDx talk was how, women, we need to do our own work. It's not that we can't be interdependent with men, but if we are depending on a man to be the strong one or to be the stable one, and we don't recognize that we have that strength inside of ourselves, then when he goes into a moment of vulnerability or a moment of tenderness, or, when he gets emotional, then if we don't have that sense of strength in ourselves, we start to panic like, oh God, the world is going to fall apart, right? So oftentimes what I say to women is, take a deep breath. Don't think that just because a man is expressing emotions that he's not going to also be the same one who, fixes the sink and picks up the kids and helps around the house and can make love to you in a really passionate way. Like, actually, what I've found is that the more women welcome a man's vulnerability, the more he can then actually show up in his strength and his power as well. Now, this isn't to say, right, this can go to the extreme. So we could create a spectrum, right? A man could, and I talk about this in the TEDx talk too, a man could go to victimhood and kind of dump and be like, I'm feeling so vulnerable, help me, fix me. That's not what I'm talking about. So that's part of what I work with men is, okay, how do you express vulnerability from a place of still loving yourself and knowing your own power? And then for women, how do I receive vulnerability while, again, knowing my own strength so that I don't have to panic that that's going away? And then how do we together, right, move through what's next, which may be, okay, now that the emotion has come out, maybe now we need a plan for what happens next, right? Or maybe we realize, okay, we need some time where we both get to be vulnerable with each other on a regular basis. And, there's more to work with in there, but that's the gist of it.
How did the TEDx talk come about?
The TEDx talk came about, gosh, how did it come about? I don't know. I just had a vision.
I don't know. I had a vision. I love that. I don't know. I had a vision.
I had a vision. I had a sense of, wow, I want to talk more about this place where there seems to be a breakdown, where relationship satisfaction seems almost at an all-time low and divorce rate is high, and what is really going on. And being someone who's worked with men and women, I felt like I wanted to share from both sides, and I wanted to be a bridge in that way to help women receive men's vulnerability, because I feel like, talking about a global level, if men were feeling loved in their most vulnerable places, I think there would be less power domination. I think there would be less war. I think things would be more peaceful, and that might be kind of Pollyanna, but I actually think that there's some truth in that.
Let me ask, what impact from your lens has the pandemic had in men and romance?
A lot of men who've come to me have, well, it's interesting because I can see that there's a certain type of man or a certain situation that men are going through that they come to me. A lot of them in the pandemic were, oh my gosh, can I stay in this relationship? A lot of men, actually, it's like stepping up and realizing, I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm suffering and she's suffering and, we're all suffering. So a lot of men, I think, are calling into question, what do I really want here? And have I been settling? Now, this doesn't mean that a relationship needs to end. This could mean, oh, I've been settling for this kind of half-conscious, half-connected, dynamic here. And actually, I don't want that. So, how can I either be more generative, create more consciousness, more connection, more passion, or how can I realize that this relationship is kind of old or stale or not going to actually make it? Because I don't believe that all relationships need to be lifelong necessarily.
Okay. You and I both get the hearts and minds of many men right across the world. And one of the things I'm wanting to get from you, if you hear this, is over the last little while, a lot of men are, for lack of a word, finding themselves. And with your coaching and your mentorship of men, how much time do you spend on mentoring the man himself versus how much time you spend working on the relationship that he has?
Yeah. I mean, most of it, I would say, is on the man himself, but the relationship is the doorway. So we take the situations, like, what was the conversation that happened? Where was the breakdown? Where was the fight? Where was the misunderstanding? And then we go in and really look at, okay, what happened there and what happened for you? Because that's really the only place that you have power is to look at your own experience as opposed to focusing out there. You know, someone did this and this is what happened and this is why they're wrong. It's like, nope, that's not where you're going to have any power to create what you really want.
You mentioned power.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, power is still important to a lot of men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are men that you are helping taking a different or taking an introspective look at power and their manhood?
Yeah. Yeah. I put out a book of some of my podcasts called Power and Pleasure. And it's a little, what would you say that word? Sometimes as a mom, I lose track of words. Controversial. I feel like my vocabulary is like 30% less than before I had a kid.
Well, hey, hold on. I've been told that guys' vocabulary is low amount as it is, so you're still ahead of us, especially
awesome.
dads. Okay.
Yeah. So controversial. It's controversial because, you know, power can be seen as, okay, power over or power in a way that's destructive. And so what I like is to support men to reclaim a kind of power that also involves the heart, like you said, right? Power plus love and care and a sense of the other person matters as well, and their opinions matter as well, is so beautiful. And, you know, I know in relationships, if talking about romance, many women tend to find it very, you know, attractive and endearing when a man is simultaneously powerful enough. He's generating his own life. He cares about the world. He's being in service in the world. You know, he's active in a powerful way that comes from also a place of love, right?
How easy is that for a man to achieve? Because to me,
I don't know. You're a man. You tell me.
I knew you were going to come back at me sooner or later. I think it's a very, very delicate balance.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I ask women is, what's more important to you in a relationship, security or excitement?
It's kind of a trick question, isn't it?
I'm not going to go any further. We'll discuss offline. We'll discuss offline.
Because both.
You know,
both are usually important.
I think I would believe that many men want power and passion, but can they handle it?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's a great question. Can they handle it? And I think oftentimes what I'm doing is working with a man's nervous system to expand what he can handle, because women can be a lot. Sometimes I talk about it like going around in your everyday life and it's like you're like a 20 watt light bulb. And then a woman comes into your life and suddenly there's 500 watts of energy running through you. And not just women, like a woman comes into your life who you've never known, but maybe a woman walks in the door and you've been with her for 15 years, you know? And so the circuits can kind of short and men can feel a little fried by that. And so I help men understand, all right, how do I use my body and my nervous system to expand so that I can handle more, so that I can have more passion, I can feel more, I can love more, right? As opposed to I'm going to shut down or, you know, get blown out by the feminine.
It's interesting. We're talking about the power and passion, and I have an example of it. Gentleman who I've known for at least 20 years, known him and his wife, and he does a lot of presentations in front of a large group of people. Yeah. And one of the things that's absolutely beautiful about their relationship is when he's up doing a presentation, she's usually sitting in the front row.
Aww.
And the way that she looks at him.
Love.
The love is there, and also he has power because he's presenting to hundreds of people.
Yes.
And the love that is there.
Yeah.
Like, and I've told them this many times, it brings tears to my eyes when I see it. So and especially to this gentleman, because he's a mentor of mine, say, you know, I think it's so beautiful. Just as that moment, just watching and just, you can see the love that she has for him. Yeah. And he's also exuding power in a nice way.
Yes.
To a large group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think these days it's really interesting because I could see the same vice versa, right? I could see a woman standing up and speaking and a man in the front row just loving and adoring and, you know, like appreciating and respecting that woman for her power. And I think, God, in the past, right, there was a dynamic where men were the ones to be powerful in the world and women were the ones who were supporting that power. But there's a weaving now, and the couples I see, the couples I see who are happiest can ride, that dance, that line back and forth, like, oh, you're going to be powerful in the world and I'm going to be powerful in the world, and we're both going to support each other, and we're both going to respect each other, and we're both going to love each other. And we're also going to have moments where we both feel vulnerable and scared, and we can hold that with each other as well.
We're going down a good road here. Let's continue on. Let's flip it. How many of the men that you mentor and coach have challenge? How much does a woman's increased power or power in a relationship affect their ability to be romancing?
Yeah. A lot of men who I work with identify as kind of nice guys. And so it can be scary to be with a woman who is very powerful. Now, I'll make a distinction. There are women who are powerful and who shut off their feminine capacity to relax and be sweet and, like receive and be kind of like ooey gooey. And men especially seem to have a hard time with that. And there are ways that I work with women, or more when I worked with women, to help women feel their power and their strength in the world, and also be able to let go and surrender or relax, or whatever words you want to use. So then the men who I work with, when they are in relationships with women who are powerful, there's a certain kind of, like you said, like it takes an expansion. It takes not taking things as personally. Like if she's in a mood or she's kind of rigid and it's hard to open her, a lot of men who I work with have kind of crumbled or been like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's not happening, versus, oh, how could I get playful or creative here? Like, where is my power? Doesn't always have to come from either, hopefully it doesn't come from you do it my way or you don't, hopefully it comes from, oh, well, I can look deeper and see that maybe on the surface, she's feeling kind of defensive or rigid. Underneath that, she's probably scared. And again, this could go for any gender, right? She's probably either scared or she's, there's something kind of tender there. So when I support men to start to see what is deeper, how can you feel less fear about a woman's intensity or her power? Well, one of the best ways is to really look under that and be like, nobody contracts or gets tight or defensive unless there's something under there that's more vulnerable, right? And so in that way, you don't have to feel as afraid and back down and just be like, whoa, okay. You can actually come forward more lovingly and be like, I see you're pushing me away right now. Is that really what you want? Or it seems like you're upset with me, and, let's actually talk about this instead of both going to our separate corners, right? So there's a way to, if we're not taking it as personally and it doesn't seem like you're bad or wrong because she's upset, then you can actually work through it together.
This is deep work.
Very deep, very deep work. I mean, I will say, right, I'm in the midst of deep work. My partner and I live in different places, and now we used to live an hour apart. Now we live 10 or 11 hours apart.
Oh my goodness.
So he just came here for the first time, and we kind of cohabitated in a way for a week for the first time. And I can feel all of my old patterns and my old wounds around my parents and their relationship. And, it takes something to be willing to be conscious and not just act that out sorry for cussing, right? But
that's all right.
There's a lot of old conditioning and old wounds, and it's easy in some ways to just fall into that and give up or, bicker or treat each other with disrespect. And so to really step up into a more conscious relationship takes some work, and it takes some commitment.
How do you, in the start of your journey with men, helping men, how do you break the ice? How do you get them to start that journey? Because they've never met you.
Yeah.
Right. How are you able to start that journey? Because as I said, they don't know you.
Yeah.
They've
Well, a
never
lot of
met you
men,
before.
interestingly, when they talk to me for the first time, they say, "Oh, I feel like I know you because I've been listening to your podcast, right? Or I've seen you on videos or things like that." So it seems to naturally happen, right? It seems that they have a sense of trust because of what I've said in the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well that's a nice icebreaker. So your icebreaker is done before they even met you. They like
Yeah.
you. They know, love, and trust you.
I think so. And then I just, I listen and I acknowledge them and I hear the pain and also see their greatness. And so, I imagine that's helpful as well.
As you go through this journey with men,
Mm-hmm.
is it easier, in your opinion, is it easier today for men to be in a romantic relationship compared to when you started this journey?
Good question. Is it easier? Ooh, depends on what we're gauging easier.
I'll let you define. You can pick certain areas.
Right. Or
Yep.
C, none of the above. I think like kind of like you said, like stability or security or passion. I'm like, how about both? Yeah. I think it's easier and harder. It's easier because there's more welcoming of vulnerability and men's humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder because there's a lot of baggage and background of not having that welcomed, for decades that you've been alive. I think it's easier because there's a lot more resources and a lot more ways to get support around communication and around sex and around intimacy. Harder because that is called out, that is called for, right? Like in the past, it wasn't really like women weren't saying, or people weren't saying like, I want more consciousness, I want more love, I want more passion. So you could kind of slip by, I think. And so it's harder in some ways, but there are more resources to follow.
Actually, we're gonna show a few quick moments of Shana's TEDx talk.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna show the first few moments of it. So we're gonna bring it up here. I know I'm surprising her with that.
You are surprising me.
but it's a good thing. So we're gonna bring it up here. All right, and let's listen to the superstar in action. We'll give a few moments of the opening of the TEDx, but I'll show the link before we end. So let's go.
I've had more than 1,000 men cry and be vulnerable with me, many of them sharing their vulnerability for the first time, which is amazing because to this day, we are still teaching our boys and our men to cry less and to toughen up. Everyone from strangers to my family has tried to get me to get my son to cry less. And a couple years ago, I was walking down the hall with my son in his kindergarten, and a little boy had told him that if he said the number 10, he would die. And as a 6-year-old, he was terrified. So we're walking down the hall, and this woman looks at him and yells, "No tears," not knowing why he was crying. And I froze, luckily, because I think otherwise I might have pounced on her. And as she walked by, I managed to yell, "Tears are fine with me." And I looked at my son and I said, "It's okay to cry, sweetie. I know you're afraid." I don't think it's a coincidence that a few days later, this woman's son told me he got in trouble for saying mean things to kids 3 times that day. People who are hurting hurt others, especially those who aren't allowed to express their hurt. And too often, boys and men are told that their hurt is unmanly or unattractive. And I believe this has led us to a crisis where Mental Health America shows suicide on the rise since the year 2000. It's now the 7th leading cause of death for males. More than 4 times as many men die from suicide as women. And the NCHS reports that 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety. Now, not all men turn to suicide, and in the past 15 years, I've been a relationship and leadership coach for men. Men often come to me saying that things look really good on the outside, but parts of them are dying on the inside. And last year, in 1 month alone, men said to me things like, "I'm drinking alone at night and I don't want to tell my wife and scare her. The work, commute, the kids, it's all killing me. I got a promotion, which should be amazing, but I don't know how to navigate it. I don't fit in anymore. I've never had a conversation about sex with my wife. We don't have a sex life, and I don't know how. Being a father is amazing, but it's also really stressful to the point where I feel like I could break. So how do we help men share this vulnerability instead of hide it? Well, I've been working with this for the past 20 years since I was doing a master's degree in psychology, thinking I was going to work with women. And I was asked to facilitate a workshop for men, where men would come to get honest feedback from women with love and with care. And it was born out of an intentional community I was a part of, where we, as optimistic young adults, were exploring vulnerability with topics like attraction and rejection and frustration and jealousy, having conversations that most people would completely avoid. And two of the men were so impacted by this experience. They felt much more empowered. They felt able to connect. They wanted other men to have this experience as well. And so they created these workshops for men. And at the end of the first one, we're sitting around in a circle, about 20 men and women. And one of the men raises his hand, and with tears streaming down his face, he says, "When I came here this weekend, I didn't know if I wanted to live anymore. I've been going through a painful divorce. I've been trying to raise my son. It's been really awful. But you saved me. You brought me back, and you gave me hope." And when we asked him how, he said, "You didn't walk away, you didn't shame, you didn't attack my vulnerability. You welcomed my tears, my despair, even my rage."
We'll just stop it there. So I just wanted to show a bit of that. And that's a powerful piece right there from what we just saw. So thank you for that. And I caught you off guard on that, but I thought it was really good to share that with you. Very, very much so. Question.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment when that man shared?
Oh, yeah. I will never forget it.
Good. What at that, if you can cycle back to that moment, how did that make you feel when he shared that experience?
I mean, I broke down and just started sobbing, and it was like my heart broke for him. It was a simultaneous sense of heartbreak for him and for all men who were suffering alone, and some hope starting to creep in, right? Some sense of, oh my God, if he could feel, I don't want to say saved, that's very extreme, but if he could feel a shift to go from hopelessness to hope, right? If he could start to see, I don't have to feel dead inside. I don't have to feel undernourished. I can actually do this, and I can be loved in all of these vulnerable places. Then other men could feel that too. And so heartbreak and hope at the same time.
Nice. Well, as we start winding down our conversation, I'd like to get your thoughts. What has the Me Too movement impact had from your lens on men and romantic relationships?
I think in some ways it's been a good thing to call out, like to have men be self-reflective. You know, am I a part of the problem, or am I contributing to this? Even if I'm not one of the men who have been, abusing, like, am I being silent? Am I being a bystander? How do I connect with my own partner? If I have kids, especially if I have girls, how am I raising them? How am I supporting them? So I think it's been powerful on the one hand. I think it's also been very confusing. Men who question and don't have a sense of, like, I have access to that primal, passionate part, definitely seem to get a little more scared. Like, whoa, okay, well, I guess I shouldn't bring that to the table. And I think that's a little too black and white, right? I think, there are very sexy ways to bring consent. Mm-hmm. There are very sexy ways to explore with a partner. How does this feel to you? Like, when I'm powerful in this way, what happens for you? So I think it opened up the door for a lot of conversations if people were willing to step in and men were willing to step in. And And I think it also lent to some confusion, and it highlighted a place where if men were not okay with their power from a place of love, then I saw men start to doubt it. Like, is this okay? Is that okay? Can I say this? Can I hug? Can I, like, what can I even do?
Yeah. I know a number of men who are in that mindset.
Yeah.
They're just like glass, wall, done.
Yeah. And it's tricky, but I would say, right, there's a way that you could become jaded, or there's a way that you can just be like, fine, I give up, or, get hardened. And I would encourage the opposite. I would encourage you to open your heart more and step into your power more. I think that's the issue. It's not that you have to shut down your power. It's turning up the dial also on your heart to be able to see, oh, this is, a human being in front of me. There's not a woman is not an object, which most men I work with never saw that in the first place. But, it's like, okay, how can I actually create deep, connected experiences where the women are coming forward? And I also encourage men to see women as adults. Like some men say, well, I want to have a one night stand, but I don't want to use a woman. And I'm like, great. So be honest. Let her know exactly where you are and what you're here for. And she then gets to choose if she's up for that as well. And
but that can be chancy.
It can be chancy. And
because if there's contention, a lot of men would say in a situation that if it's agreed upon, but if it goes into a court of law, the court's always going to favor what the lady says. Lady could have said she wasn't up for it.
Yeah, it can be tricky, but I would say the more you can have conscious conversations, and there's a way, whatever gender you are, as you're talking to someone, you're kind of testing in a way to get a sense of what's that person's level of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So if you get a sense, oh, this person is able to talk this through, these complex issues around power and consent and, all of that, and this person actually seems like, a yes, mm-hmm. That's really different than someone who's like, yeah, whatever, doesn't engage in the conversation or gets defensive or tries to, fight certain things. So it's probably a question for another time that we can dive more into.
Like I said,
right.
It's not a one and done.
Going into it. Yeah.
That's not
it can be complicated, but I would say, the more you are honest up front, okay, here's where I am. Here's what I'm available for. Here's what I'm, here's what I'm looking for. Versus
here are my boundaries.
Yeah, here are my boundaries, right? Versus, oh, I'm going to try and make this happen in a sort of sideways, slightly manipulative way because I'm not being forthcoming. That gets really messy.
Got it. Well, we're running out of time. So want to say, do you have any final words you'd like to share with our audience when it comes to men and their romantic relationships?
I'm just going back to what we were talking about in the beginning where, if you're heterosexual and you're in a relationship with a woman and she's not used to you sharing your vulnerability, find places to practice, right? Practice in a men's group, contact me, have a therapist or whatever. Like, find a way that you can love yourself so fully that when you feel vulnerable or you feel afraid, you don't make that mean there's something wrong with you. And so then you don't bring it to a woman in a way where it's like apologetic or, hesitant or defensive, because the more you can do your own work to feel love toward yourself, it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter what happens out there, but you're not as impacted or affected, or you don't have to shut down based on what someone else is bringing to you. And, I'm laughing in a way because I'm like, oh, it's my work too. It's all of our work. Not like I'm done with this. I'm human and navigating this in my own relationships. That's what I would say, right? Find that place of love for yourself that doesn't diminish just because you have feelings or fears.
Wonderful. And I'll just piggyback on what Shana's saying. I strongly believe the better you can love yourselves positively, the better you can love others. So I use this once in a while. Many years ago, there was a sports company called named Starter,
Yeah.
and one of their trademark, I think one of their taglines was "It all starts with you."
Yep.
So I'm getting my comrades' approval here. I say that's very good. Shana, thank you for taking the time out of your personal, your family, and your schedule for helping men around the world. Because I'm a firm believer, like yourself, the better men are, the better the world's going to be.
Yeah, agreed. And the more loved men are,
yes, I love
the
that.
better the world's going to be too.
Yes, I love that. The more loved men are. And Shana said something earlier about creating a safe space. I like to say a safe and brave space, and I know that she does that too.
Yes, yes.
So if there's any men out there that are looking for forward movement, especially in the area of romance, the ladies here on the screen, or you've just heard the lady if you're listening to this audio only, you can find her at Shana James Coaching website. On Facebook, it's True Success for Men. So you see, she's branded herself well, right down the line. On LinkedIn, Shana James. The Man Alive podcast is available on all significant podcast platforms. And I've got it here. If you're watching it, the link here for her great TEDx talk, What 1,000 Men's Tears Reveal. Shana, you knocked it out of the park.
No, thank you so much for having me and for being such an incredible support for men and for dads and for putting your whole heart into this.
We're an army. We're an army.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. See you soon. As most importantly, be safe and give yourself grace. All right, folks, another epic conversation. Wasn't she outstanding? I'm telling you, it was a great conversation. Thank you for watching live or on the replay. My name is Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020. Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. That was the second time they liked me. The first time was the Innovation Award that they gave me in 2018. Also, I host the only online broadcast in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And one other thing I do is I'm the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative. And that's a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and drink. I'd like to say thanks to everybody. Another epic conversation. If you want to get in touch with me, it's on the screen if you're watching. Website is the best place, drvibeshow.com. As always, end off my conversations like this. Live your life as a dream if you can dream it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect, and remember to give yourselves grace. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And for my heritage, walk good. Bye-bye.